Sportsmen, artists, or ordinary people, today we are going to make you discover 10 of the greatest humans to have ever lived. You know The Rock, the wrestler who converted into the cinema. The man with the imposing size is mainly entrusted with roles of fighter or warrior, which suits him wonderfully from the top of his 1.96 meters. A size out of the ordinary that makes any person who puts himself next to him seems tiny. And if I told you that there was a woman, in the same field, wrestler and actress, next to whom Dwayne Johnson, himself, seems very small. Who would have thought it? And yet the lady in question does exist. She is American, she is 33 years old, her name is Lindsay K Hayward and her stage name is Isis the Amazon. And hold on, well, she measures 2.06 m for 117 kg. Her great size allowed her to make a name for herself in the wrestling world and to give a phenomenal beating, even to men in the ring. It also opened the doors of Hollywood by making cameos in series like Grey's Anatomy to finally get more important roles, especially in the movie R100. This earned her the Guinness World Records as the greatest actress in a leading role. However, the road to success has not been easy for this extraordinary woman. She had to overcome the mockery of her peers during adolescence and a very complicated family life, to finally assume her body, love it, and make it an asset. Now Lindsay, an accomplished actress and sportswoman, is so proud of her size that she is considering a career in modeling. Neil Fingelton is an Englishman born in 1980 in Durham, and if I talk to you about him, it's because he is one of the biggest human being who ever lived. Indeed, Neil measures 2.32 meters for 168 kg. Ever since he was a young boy, Neil wanted to live the American dream. He decided to pursue his high school education in the United States, working hard and training relentlessly during his high school years until he was able to earn a college basketball scholarship to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Unfortunately, his career as a professional athlete was short-lived due to back surgery. But through persistence, he finally managed to put his imposing body forward in Hollywood by getting roles in several big productions, such as 47 Ronin, X-Men, First Class, and Avengers: The Age of Ultron. Today he is best known for his role as Mag the Mighty, one of the giant wildlings in the hit series Game of Thrones. Neil Fingelton was able to live his American dream for a few years before passing away in 2017 at the age of 36. He did not live long but was still able to be an actor and professional sportsman. He was one of the 25 tallest men in the world. He was the tallest man born in the UK as well as the tallest European. That's what we call a full life. Remember when you were 12, 13 years old and you used to compare yourself with your friends to see who was the tallest? Some would stand on the tips of their toes, others would stretch as far as they could to be just a few millimeters taller, but for Vishkas Uppal, an Indian born in the town of Rohtak in 1986, there was never any question of cheating to look taller. He never had to look up to see who was taller. As a child, you would have loved to be in his place. You imagined that being tall should give you a sense of power and strength, but you should know that if you were abnormally tall your life expectancy would have been shorter than average. This was the case of Vishkas Uppal who, when he died of a brain tumor, was only 21 years old and already 2.46 meters tall. Moreover, when he died, the young man was still growing and his hands measured 33 centimeters while his feet were a good 48 centimeters, which is enormous. He died before Guinness could measure him, otherwise, he could have had the record of the tallest man in the world. He was nevertheless immortalized, before leaving us, thanks to a role he had in a Bollywood movie, Rang de Basanti. All in all, it's not bad if you are not giants, you can live discreetly and above all you have more chance to live very old. A chance that Vishkas did not have because he was much too big. The Guinness World Records for the tallest man alive today is held by 38-year-old Turkish Sultan Kosen. He was 2.51 meters tall at his last official measurement in 2018, which is 35 centimeters taller than the famous basketball player Shaquille O'Neal. His unusual growth was the result of a tumor of the pituitary gland, the gland that secretes growth hormone. In 2012, after 2 years of treatment at the University of Virginia in the United States, he was cured and did not grow another inch. In addition to his large size, Sultan also holds the record for the largest hands on a living person, at 28.5 centimeters from wrist to tip of middle finger, making medium-sized objects like a soda can or a book seem tiny and difficult to handle for this giant man. So everyday tasks, such as finding transportation, clothes, or shoes that fit, are a real challenge for Sultan. But what is certain is that behind his imposing stature is a sensitive man who says on GuinnessWorldRecords.com, "Everyone is different, but at the end of the day, we are all the same person." To live in total freedom, without any constraint, and above all laws. Who wouldn't dream of it? And yet it's not a dream, it's almost a reality for British man Jude Medkel, who committed more than 24 misdemeanors and petty crimes in 2014, including impersonating a police officer, sending malicious communications, and theft. This earned him a 20-month prison sentence. Except that he will only be detained for a few days before the authorities decide to release him. Weird, isn't it? I told you that Jude Medkel was above the law. Not quite. The young British man is indeed a giant who measures 2.20 meters, and with his great size, no prison cell, no uniform, and no bed was suitable for him. He was too tall to be incarcerated. An unusual situation, but the young man does not have a rosy life for all that, since he suffers from Klinefelter's syndrome, a growth disorder, caused by low levels of testosterone, which also leads to learning difficulties and mental retardation. A few months later the 23-year-old, at the mental age of 15, ended up re-offending, and this time the authorities insisted that he serve his sentence, regardless of the conditions of detention. Yes, after all, in the UK, no one is too big for prison and justice. Max Edmond Palmer is an American actor and wrestler born in Mississippi in 1927. With his height of 2.31 meters, he would be the second greatest professional wrestler of the history. And contrary to our time, Max Edmond did not start in the world of sports to end up in the cinema, but rather the opposite. Indeed, after high school our giant wanted to launch a career in the cinema, so he went to Hollywood, where he began by doing odd jobs before landing his first role in 1952 in the Jerry Lewis comedy Hour, a forerunner of SNL. He then turned in a few movies and was invited in variety shows until 1954, the year he decided to leave the movie world to begin a career as a professional wrestler under the stage name of Paul Bunyan, a giant lumberjack from North American folklore. From 1963 until his death from a heart attack in 1984, Max Edmond became an evangelistic figure and preached throughout the country, calling himself Goliath for Christ. An extraordinary journey for an extraordinary person. Giant Silva, born Paulo Cesar da Silva, is a Brazilian sportsman measuring 2.18 meters for 175 kilograms. He has always wanted to thank nature for his strong, robust, and tall body by succeeding in several disciplines. So he always trained very hard. His efforts were not in vain, as he managed to play with the Brazilian national basketball team at the 1988 Summer Olympics. A few years later, in 1997, he began a wrestling career in the United States with the WWF, then played for the Federation of Lucha Libre, Mexican Wrestling. He then continued his wrestling career in Japan. Before taking Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu classes, he started mixed martial arts competitions where he shone for a while, only to lose one defeat after another and finally lose all credibility with his public. As strong and great as it is, the human body has limits that even giant Silva could not overcome. Sometimes you have to stop. Karan Singh is a child from Meerut, India. He was born, as it were, to break records. At his birth he already made his entry in the Guinness World Record, being the heaviest infant at birth with 7.8 kilograms for 63 centimeters. It seems that it is a family story, because for a long time, his mother Shwetlana Singh, a professional basketball player, held the record of the tallest woman in India with her 2.18 meters. At 8 years old Karan already registers his second Guinness record. He is the tallest child in the world with 1.98 meters, only 5 centimeters less than LeBron James. The photos of this huge boy, who wants to be a doctor and basketball player with his classmates and mother, are surprising, to say the least. Let's hope that he will succeed in realizing his dreams and make his parents proud. Sancho VII, known as the Prudent or the Strong, was a monarch who ruled the Kingdom of Navarre, now the Basque Country, from 1154 to 1234. During his life, he made sure to leave a legacy of conqueror and great warrior like all medieval kings. Except that in 2021, he is part of a list of the greatest humans to have ever lived. And it's not the great wars he led that earn him a place on our list. Even though he commanded the army that defeated the Almohads in 1212 during the Battle of Las Navas de Tolosa. It is rather because his remains were exhumed in 1952 by the historian and anthropologist Luis del Campo. And after studying the remains of the monarch, he said that he had to measure no less than 2.23 meters. Yes, only that. What makes of it one of the biggest kings having ever existed? You probably know sumo, This Japanese wrestling sport very atypical, because of its rights, its rules and especially for the size of the sumo tories, these wrestlers big and fat but at the same time very athletic. But did you know that one of the emblematic figures of this martial art is not from the land of the rising sun but rather from the United States? To find out more, head to the state of New Jersey where Emmanuel Yarborough aka Manny was born on September 5, 1964, an African-American man weighing 363 kilograms and 2.03 meters. From a young age, he was fascinated and practiced several martial arts, which allowed him to establish himself very quickly as a champion of UFC, the American Mixed Martial Arts Organization. But against all odds, especially for an American, he turned to sumo, a sport in which he excelled, as he was crowned World Amateur Sumo Champion in 1995. Unfortunately, sumo is not the sport that contributes to the best of lifestyles. Manny died of a heart attack at the age of 51 after a lifelong battle with obesity. During the last years of his life, he was also very involved in raising awareness among young people about the dangers of obesity, by leading the Get Tiny campaign. They were 10 of the tallest humans who ever lived. Tell us in the comments which of these unusually tall humans amazed you the most, and if you like this video, don't forget to give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell to receive all the notifications and not miss any of our upcoming content.